So tonight we'll be discussing a topic that is vital to the survival of every relationship that we can think of. Whether it be the early bonds that children begin to form with their parents, friendships that we forge in school, and then the relationships between spouses, very importantly, um, business partners, and so on and so forth. So I think from there, we can understand that this topic is very vast and touches almost every point in our life. Brother Masood, is it functioning?
Yes, it's functioning well. Shukran, your sound is clear.
Okay. So often with all of these types of relationships and friendships, we sometimes come across difficulties in the sense of things not going 100% smoothly. And this is the nature of life. This is the nature of human beings. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Allah Ta'ala says that insan, human being, has been created weak. And so it's natural. It's a natural, uh, outcome that in every relationship that we have, there will be ups and downs, there will be bumps on the way, and sometimes there are major breaks. And some people feel, I just cannot get through this. Can I ever forgive? Can I ever trust again? And we all go through it in different ways. Trust pervades human societies. We are wired in a way to naturally trust people. But I think over time, we are increasingly entering a period of time where we are becoming more distrustful of people, and we are finding it more and more difficult to form these strong relationships that we have in the past. And I think we need to draw our attention to the ultimate relationship, and that is the relationship between a person and his or her creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And nothing can obviously measure up to this type of relationship, but I think this is a good model for us to base our relationships on. In Surah Al-Rum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the conquest of the Roman Empire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something very interesting. He says, وَعَدَ اللَّهِ لَا يُخْلِفُ اللَّهُ وَعَدَهُ. That this is the promise of Allah, and Allah will never, ever break his covenant and promise. Now, if you look at the Hadith Qudsi and what is directly related to us via Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ta'ala says, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِي بِي. That I am as my bondsmen think of me. And I think if we keep this relationship in mind, then every other relationship becomes easy, because we want our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be a good one, one that we can always rely on. And that's why we are taught this dua of Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum bi rahmatika astaghith aslih li sha'ni kulla wa la takilni ila nafsi tarfata ayn. That, oh Allah, do not leave me to my own devices, even for the blink of an eyelid. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to teach us lessons, he teaches us via the Quran and Sunnah. If we look at the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrates نحن قصصنا عليك أحسن القصص. That he is now addressing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Ummah at large, that we will narrate to you the best of stories. And which story did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose for this? He chose the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. And Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, his story is very magical and teachable in very many ways. It's filled with danger and betrayal, yet it is also a very inspirational story, as in the end, it shows us that, again, coming back, the stable force in our life, in our lives, and in the life of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the care of Allah ta'ala, and the trust that he had in Allah ta'ala. That someone so beloved to Allah experienced so much of betrayal is unimaginable on one end, but it's also an indication of Allah's love and care to those that he loves, that he will choose not to hurt us in the end. If we look at the very beginning of the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, he experienced betrayal on very many levels. In the beginning of the surah, before the entire story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, and for brevity, I will not quote the entire Arabic, but he came to his father and he related a dream to him. And remember, his father was Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salatu wassalam, another noble prophet. So Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam, son of the honorable Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salatu wassalam, and who was the son of another honorable prophet of Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who was Sayyidina Ishaq alayhi salatu wassalam, who eventually was actually the son of Sayyidina Ebrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. So we can see that the whole lineage was one of honor and one of nobility. And we find that, Brother Masood, at any time, please let me know if something is wrong on my side.
Will do, Doctor. Everything is going smooth, alhamdulillah, shukran.
Okay. So we find that throughout all of this, so first of all, the dream was narrated to his father, that I saw 10 stars and I saw a sun and a moon prostrating to me. Now his father, being a Nabi, obviously understood the interpretation of this dream, but because of the youth and the young age of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, did not tell him what the entire follow through was going to be. He just told him, do not tell your brothers about this dream because they are jealous over you for whatever reason. His own brothers. So we can find already the stage is set for something ominous that is going to happen via someone's own blood. And his brothers took him out, as we know the famous story, took him out to play despite their father not being too happy about it, and were so jealous over him that they tried to kill him. But one of the wise ones amongst them said that we will not kill him, rather we will throw him into the well. And we know the story of them taking his shirt with the blood of the wolf to their father and obviously his father did not believe that this was his shirt and his blood, but he he knew that a great story was going to play out. And at every stage of the story that I'm going to narrate to you, Allah was closer. Like Allah says, He's closer to human beings than our jugular vein. He protected him at all stages. So you find that he was betrayed by his brothers, who he went out innocently to play with. And then further on, he went to suffer in a place where he thought he was seeking refuge. The wife of the minister who adopted him accused him of molestation. And even at that time, a wise person from the court said, look at the physical evidence. In kana qamisu, if his shirt was qudda min duburin, if it was torn from the back, then she, the minister's wife, pulled him. But if it was torn from the front, then then obviously he opened up his shirt, and it was found that it was from the back. So even though that happened, the physical evidence was present in his favor. His wife said to the minister that you have to imprison him. So he was imprisoned. In prison, and we find that, all these betrayals were occurring one after the other. And all of this was to draw him closer to Allah Ta'ala. Even when those that betray us, they betray us because Allah Ta'ala has planned it such, and He wants us to become closer to Him. Now, something interesting that you would like to know, there's a hormone in our body called oxytocin. And you mentioned my link with mental health and psychiatry. There was an interesting study that was done. There were numerous studies that have been done on the biological role of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a happy hormone, and it's a hormone that's released when a woman is giving childbirth. It's a happy hormone that's released when we go for a jog, when we go for a run. It's a happy hormone when a mother is breastfeeding her child. If you hug someone, oxytocin is released. So there was a famous study that was done in around 2005, around that time, where oxytocin's biological role in trust, in particular, in humans, was explored. So Kosfeld et al. Reported on their pioneering study where they administered some oxytocin intranasally into the nose of the subjects that were used for this trial, and there was a trust game. And the more oxytocin, just to make it less clinical, the more oxytocin that was given, the more the other side was inclined to trust. The people that were given the oxytocin were inclined to trust the other side of the trial, and invest more money in whatever business proposition they had given them. So they demonstrated, and then subsequent to that, other scientists like Vellum, Leng and Ludwig, Murop all did studies with oxytocin, showing that trust is released when, or trust is enhanced when oxytocin is released. So I just thought I'd bring that in. It's very important that we don't forget the physical impact of oxytocin and trust. The more we indulge in loving behavior, in hugging behavior, of course, halal, permissible behavior, the more we do things that will release oxytocin, the more we will be trusting in someone. So coming back to the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, even when he was imprisoned, it was found that there were two people that were sent to ask for interpretations of dreams by him. And it was through these people that one of them that eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought about his freedom from jail. But we find that Allah subhanahu wa that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam mentions and calls Allah by his names of Al-Latif and Al-Wali in this situation, when he was in this very treacherous situation. And he says, Al-Latif, Ya Latif, the one who is kind, gracious, understanding. Latif is a very it's a person, it's a being that knows a very subtle information and details of individual circumstances. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in our hearts. He knows what's in our mind. He knows exactly what we're going through. And when we are feeling down and someone breaks our trust, Al-Latif knows about this. And Al-Wali, the one who is the defender, the guardian, the supporter, these are the two words that the two names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we should rely on and ask and call on when we feel that we have been, our trust has been betrayed. So as I said, we form these relationships very early of trust, and for some reason or the other, trust can be broken, and trust can be betrayed. So we say that we can forgive, will forgive, and we see it very constantly in practice. We see either spouse cheating on each other, whether it might be, now we are living in the age of cyber addiction. So, cheating on a spouse, whether it might be via the phone that is plugged to our very hands. We are losing an entire generation to cyber addiction. We find that people are being betrayed in that way. People are being betrayed even in the very physical sense. People are being betrayed. Spouses are being betrayed. We find that relationships, friendships that we've had for years, sometimes over a small argument or a petty problem, this trust is betrayed. We find that in business, more and more people, just to make the quick buck, to make more money, someone that we might be in business for years with can betray us and betray our trust. And we can forgive once. As human beings, we are given the the ability to forgive. So we can forgive once, we can forgive twice. And really we want Allah to forgive us. So why not forgive others? We know the famous dua that Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'afu anni. Oh Allah, you are the most pardoning, you love pardoning, so pardon me. So we often, as human beings, we are inclined to forgive. We'll forgive once, we'll forgive twice, third, fourth time, but then we reach a point where how much more do I forgive? And that part is where this whole discussion of betrayal of trust comes in. Will I trust again? Will I be able to live with someone again? Will I be able to go into business with someone again? Will I be able to have another child with someone again? And we find that if we find that when our trust is betrayed, like the trust of Yusuf alayhi salam was betrayed, his trust was betrayed by his brothers, his trust was betrayed by the person that was his adoptive mother, his trust was betrayed by the minister, his trust was betrayed by one person that he took as a very close companion in jail. But he called out to Ya Latif and Ya Wali. And what was the ultimate result of this? We might ask, what should he have done? Because towards the ending of the story, which is related in Surah Yusuf, his brothers come to Egypt, having been famine-stricken in their lives, and they came to him as a minister, as the king of Egypt, to seek for food, for sustenance, and for protection. And what happens is he comes to his they come to their brother Yusuf, who they betrayed, not knowing that he is now that same Yusuf. And what was the end result? وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ, that he raised his parents upon the throne, and they bowed to him in prostration. And he said to him, he said, "Oh, my father, this is the explanation of the dream that I gave you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has now made it a reality. He was certainly good to me when he took me out of prison and brought you here. And verily, Allah is Al-Latif. He is the one who is knowing. He is Khabir." And he told his brothers, the very ones that betrayed him, what could he have done? He could have taken revenge. He was now the minister. He was now the king. He could have taken revenge. But instead of that, what he did was, he said, "There's no blame on you today. My Rabb, my Allah has taken me out of all of these problems and given me something of sovereignty, taught me the interpretation of dreams, and has made me a Muslim." So ultimately, this was the "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm." There's no blame upon you today. And we find that whenever we are afflicted with a difficulty, a trial, what should be our response as Muslims? One of the mothers of the Muslims, of the Mu'mineen, one of the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Salama radiyallahu ta'ala anha. She was married to a very good man who passed away. And she was in such grief, such worry. She came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she asked him that, what should I do in this situation? And he taught her a very potent dua. He said to her, Allahumma, say whenever a musibah, an affliction afflicts you, then make this dua. Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa khlufni khayran minha. That, oh Allah, grant me reward in this affliction of mine and replace me with something that is better. And she thought to herself, but what could be better than Abu Salama? What could be better than the husband that I had? And lo and behold, she becomes one of the Azwaj Mutahharat, one of the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and one of the mothers of the believers. So we need to stop. We need to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there to look after us. And we need to, sometimes we overgeneralize when someone has betrayed our trust. We need to deal with this overgeneralization, this overarching perception that we might have of the people that have betrayed us, and seek the necessary help that is there. And the help could be in the form of a scholar of Deen, could be in the form of a psychologist, could be in the form of a psychiatrist. And don't fall into the trap of a false refuge, something that is temporary. Let us not run to temporary relief, temporary discomfort, something that will provide false comfort. Don't get lost in the distractions and distractions of this world, and decide that avoiding the difficult conversations, avoiding the difficult interactions, avoiding the work that needs to be put in to rebuild this trust will help us. Actually, we are running away. We need to, first of all, get to know Allah Ta'ala as a means of regaining trust. And we need to be ready to put in the necessary work if that relationship is something that we want to save. And for that, there are many people that are available in our society that can help us and that can, assist us in riding this, traversing this ocean of betrayal and negativity. Brother Masood, I just want to check with you if there's any questions so far.
So, Doctor, is a question. How do you trust again if your spouse doesn't know that you're aware that they have betrayed you in the form of secretly chatting to others and it being of a sexual and flirtatious nature?
So, as I mentioned, this is something that, even if it wasn't a physical relationship, even if it might be something that was done over technology, we need to decide whether, can I get through this? And in most cases, the answer is yes. I can get through this. We can get through this. If I did love this person at one point, remember that Allah loves all of us. And Allah knows that we will make mistakes. We will fall into deviation. But we want His forgiveness at the end of the day. So shouldn't we become forgiving? So what we can do is approach, in this case, it will be either a marriage counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a scholar of Deen who is involved in this kind of work, and remember the person that you first fell in love with. Remember that person. Remember the person that you first trusted. Remember the person that you first initially got to know and became best friends with. And you can work through this. Yes, there will be a lot of anger, there'll be a lot of resentment, there'll be wanting revenge, there'll be wanting to know details, but all of that won't help us in the end. Um, when we are distressed, either emotionally, socially, academically, occupationally, and marital betrayal can affect all of these things, then let us go to those who will help us, that will help us regain the trust, help us go through that journey. Don't go it alone. That's my one advice. Don't go it alone. Don't try and gain revenge or, try and fix things alone, because it will just make things even worse. Go to people who are um, involved in this kind of work, who are professionals or who are scholars, um, who are dealing with this on a daily basis. And yes, we are dealing with this on a daily basis. I mean, um, we often see in our rooms um, spouses who are beaten, you know, eardrums perforated, but they, for some reason or the other, trauma bonds are something that's maybe another whole different topic that we can go into, trauma and post-traumatic trauma. Um, but they want to forgive, forget, and get through the problem. So yes, we can help as long as both parties are wanting to come to the table, be transparent, be honest, and want to rebuild what they once had before.
I've got another question. Do you have any advice for someone who feels betrayed by her husband who secretly married a second wife?
So first of all, we shouldn't be doing these things in secret, right? Let's get that out of the way. Islam has allowed for up to 4 spouses, as long as one is absolutely, completely just, um, between all of them. So first of all, the husband should be advised that he shouldn't have done this. And to all men listening out there, don't do this in secret. It only ends up in disaster. I mean, I deal with these things almost on a weekly basis, where there's a wife in one city and there's a wife in another city, and they don't know of each other. And then how do they find out about each other? Sometimes it's through a child, sometimes it's through, social media, and they will find out about each other. So it's not a good idea to keep this a secret. Discuss it with your wife. Discuss the reasons that you want to have a second wife. And if those reasons are uh, true, just, and fulfilling the sunnah, then if still your wife doesn't want to accept it, then women are of a nature where, and all human beings, even men for that case, will be jealous, will be envious. Let us go to someone who will help us through this journey, help the wife understand why we want to take a second wife, and then make nikah. Now, the question that was posed, can I forgive? Can I get through? I think with work, everything comes down to doing the work. So I think with the work, we can get through that. Um, yes, it was not right for your husband to secretly do it, um, but let's see how we can make this a family now. Like the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, or not even too long ago, or even in some countries or in some regions where this practice is quite rife, let's see how we can raise a family together, become co-spouses, become um, and when we try and look at the good in that second wife, when we try and look at what happiness she's bringing to my husband, um, then and how we can work together to make this family, one united family, then it becomes easier. When it's not a secret, and for when it's out there, when it's um, fostered as a family together, then it won't be as hurtful as remaining in this guessing and guessing game where we think he has a second wife. We don't know whether he has a second wife, and the other wife also, she is kept in secret, so she's not allowed to maybe go into public or to tell her family that she's married again. So it's difficult for her as well. So why don't we sit together with professionals again, with ulama, with shuyukh, and sit together and work through how, yes, there will be resentment, there will be anger, there will be jealousy, but we can work through these things. These are human emotions, which Allah Ta'ala has given an antidote for everything. And that is why we should make this a part of our daily supplications. Um, One of the main supplications that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, and this appears in Sahih al-Bukhari, and the narrator that narrates this hadith says that وَكَثِيرًا مَا سَمِعْتُهُ, that many times I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam making this dua. And we know the beginning, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from worry, grief, and anxiety. But what is at the end of the dua? وَمِن قَهْرِ الرِّجَالِ, and I seek protection in you from being overpowered by my fellow man. So let us make this part of our daily supplications. And when we bring this to therapy, when we bring this mindset to therapy, that I want to seek refuge from being overpowered by other people. Ya Allah, you are the only one that has supreme power over me. So when we bring this to therapy, then we'll find that love will automatically come. We might not want to live together, but we might come to the acceptance that yes, certain nights or certain days my husband will spend with his second wife, and certain days will be with me. And in this way, I'm actually assisting in fulfilling a sunnah. Now, this might not be everyone's cup of tea, and some people might be happy with one wife. That's 100%. I think most of the ummah will be happy with this. But there's a big part where there's place for second wives. I mean, if your husband is taking care of someone who is a widow or a divorcee, or someone who has children. So and these children have no father. So let's look at it as me being part of that, me being part of helping this other family out, more than it's me versus you sort of scenario. Yes.
So there's another question. What if the spouse who cheated or betrayed is not ready to go to a psychologist and doesn't realize how this behavior affected the other person and is not trying to change his behavior that's bothering his family?
So, Brother Masood, I can see most of these questions are coming from our sisters. um, yes, it's something that is true. It's a reality. Some people might not want to own up to what they've done or not want to go to help. In that case, I would advise that maybe a cooling off period is something that we should look at. Um, you know, uh, First of all, these marriages or these second marriages should not be affairs, starting off as affairs and extramarital relationships which lead to marriages. I think we should go out with the proper intention of getting married. But sorry, your question was?
So the question was, what if the spouse who cheated or betrayed is not ready to go to a psychologist and doesn't realize how this behavior affected the other person and is not trying to change his behavior that's bothering his family?
Then in that case, I think, if a person is cheating, if a person is committing zina, then in that case, definitely the woman, the wife has every right to say, I want a cooling off period from this. This is not something that I signed on for. When I made nikah with you, I committed myself to being faithful to you. Now you are being unfaithful. This is a sin. This is a from the kabair, from the major sins. And it's something that gives me grounds to actually not want to be in the same place as you. So in that case, then I think she should go to the relevant authorities, being the jam'iyat, the judicial councils, and explain to them her situation and ask their advice in that case. I think she's in every she has every right to go on her own to higher authorities to seek some advice and some help.
There's another question. There's quite a few questions now. Do family receive forgiveness when there is a pattern over the years of them wanting to emotionally hurt you and only want you around when it is in their favor?
No, I think, am I getting the question right? Do we put up with this kind of behavior? Is that the question?
Yeah, so the question is, do family receive forgiveness when there is a pattern over the years of them wanting to emotionally hurt you and only want you around when it is in their favor?
No, I don't think that such people should receive ultimate, like a free pass to do whatever they want, and to go on and on. So, as I said, we can forgive and forgive and forgive, but to a certain point, and that those boundaries must be clearly demarcated. That now, enough is enough. We won't take more of this. The question is a bit vague in terms of what kind of behavior has been referred to here, but whatever kind of behavior it is, I think boundaries should be put into place. For example, off the top of my head, if a son or a daughter is using substances, for example, and they go on by stealing things from the home to support their abuse, by abusing their parents, by abusing fellow family members, or by lying and lying and lying, then there's steps that have to be taken. You try and get them help, but once you do that, once you forgive and you've gotten them help, then we need to draw some sort of line and say, enough is enough. I will not let you abuse me anymore.
Okay, the next question. So my husband had an affair way back in 2018 already. After being married for 18 years, he admitted that it was a mistake and because I'm a housewife and close to 60, I decided to stay. I've turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even more. I'm struggling, but keeping it to myself because he hates it when I bring it up and says that he thinks we've moved on already. Just cannot seem to trust him, and it's actually eating me up inside. Only our daughter knows about it.
Okay, so dear sister, I'm very sorry for the situation that you're in. But if your husband has made tawbah and asked you for forgiveness, and you've given that forgiveness, then I think it's healthier for you to accept that he's moved on from that and that he's not going to repeat that. Yes, should he repeat any type of that behavior again, then you are at liberty to, take the further steps. But if he has made tawbah, sincere tawbah, and that's between him and Allah Ta'ala, but he has asked you forgiveness. Because remember, Allah can forgive, but you need to forgive him as well, because he's oppressed you and he's abused your rights. So once he's done that, he's asked your sincere forgiveness, you've forgiven him, then I think there's no point in harboring on that. Yes, it might be difficult, but I think you need to go. You need to go as a couple, um, to to get through this, to go for help. So there are, as I said, many people who can help, and you need to approach them. And sometimes these people might be younger than you, the people that you're going to help for. They might be younger than you, but they have studied these things, and they deal with this on a daily basis. So you need to get him committed to some sort of program. And there's no shame in keeping tabs on him, or watching out for any other dangerous or indicative behavior. But once he's asked for forgiveness, once you've forgiven him, once you've made the decision to move on and to stay, then it's only going to be to your detriment if you're going to harbor it. Just like the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, if he kept it in his heart what they'd done to him, and he said that he's going to be vengeful and revengeful and hateful, he would not be happy himself. So in order for your own happiness, you need to realize that, and I'm not saying, I'm not in any way saying that what your husband has done is fine, is correct. But what I'm saying is that you, for your own happiness now, you've forgiven him, move on. And if you can't on your own, then get help. Get help from a psychologist, get help from a psychiatrist, get help from a marriage counselor.
Okay, there's another question. How does one begin to forgive an ex-spouse that out of nowhere decided they wanted a divorce and then made you out to be the villain in the situation?
So I think this is already a case of you having you out of the marriage, you out of the marriage, and you are in your own life now. So you need to make that life happy. You need to make that life prosperous. You need to not care about what society says. They can go out of their way to make you the villain. But remember, ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is the judge. And this life is so short, really, if we think about it. In the year after, if they've not sought your forgiveness, then it's up to Allah how you will judge them. But remember that this life is so short. It's too short for you to spend worrying about what other people think about you. Really, it should be about what you think of yourself, learn to love yourself again, and inshallah, maybe someone else will love you also. It's never too late to find a new partner. It's never too late to build your life again from scratch. It's never too late to do anything. So I think really the sister in this case has been wronged, but she needs to focus on working on herself, working on making her new life a happy one, and not worrying about what people say. Because at the end of the day, no one is going to come up to me and say, I'm going to pay your rent if you let me uh, think that you are the villain. No one's going to come up to you and say, I'm going to maintain you now if you let me speak ill of you. They're not going to pay your bills, as that's the famous saying goes. So let them say what they have to say. Remember, that's just gossip on their side. And your husband is falling more into sin by making you out to be the villain if he's the one that cheated in the marriage.
The next question, married for 25 years, cheated 15 times, never admits and accepts, denies, and is not responsible for actions despite being caught. I have a lot of hatred and resentment. He knows I am an orphan, no family. I feel, why should I leave and make space for another person, as I have made a lot of sacrifices for him, and I have 5 children, 2 married and 2 grandchildren. All my children are away. Please advise.
Okay, so this is a bit of a complicated case because on the one hand, you have someone who has cheated on you multiple times, um, and that's enough ground for you to 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 want an annulment or a divorce. But at the same time, you say that you have nowhere to go or you're an orphan. In such cases, I think it's best to contact the the, 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 the Islamic societies and organizations that are around you in your area and in every area, most areas in we are addressing the South African audience here, Brother Masood.
That's correct, Doc.
Yeah. So in most areas, there you will find um, uh, an Islamic organization that has a section dedicated towards um, abused women or divorced women or widowed women. And you can go to them. And I think I would advise you to rather go to them than stay in this. Um, Go to them and ask them their advice. Because being cheated on 15 times, that's and on top of that, holding the threat of withdrawing finances from you, that really is something serious. So I think in that case, I think you should approach one of our wonderful organizations and try and seek some help from them. See where they can help you, and I'm sure there will be. Maybe I'm not saying all of them do the best of jobs, but you know you maybe one door will be closed, but Allah Ta'ala will open another door. And the heart of the broken person is the closest to Allah. So remember that He's on your side. Pray tahajjud, make dua, and don't feel the need to protect or protect this person um, any longer.
The next question, if a spouse had been cheating almost all the years of marriage, but claims that he never had a physical relationship with any, even though there was evidence that he picked up some girls, should he be given the benefit of the doubt? How does one forgive and trust again?
So again, yeah, we come to the part of both parties admitting that there is evidence. So both parties coming to the table of a a person who is trained in this area and working through that. Um, as I said, the Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam had many reasons not to trust again, but he chose two. Now, in this case, I think you need to approach the right people who are trained in this area and speak to them. Um, and speak to them and ask them what to how to go forward. Sorry, I don't know if there was a question coming up here.
Okay, so the next question, I was cheated on after 1 year and 2 months of marriage. I have confronted my husband and the other lady both with my mother-in-law present. Ever since I carried on with my marriage, I feel as if my husband has now started taking advantage of my forgiveness. Since the cheating is done, everything against what I've asked him. It feels as if I'm not seen by him because he knows I've forgiven him for something as it as cheating. Maybe, yeah. So my question is, I think it's the same person. My question is that do I patiently wait for things to change, or should I take action, and what type of action do I need to take in order for things to be better?
So if I just get you correctly, the spouse was cheated upon,
That's correct.
and 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 what else?
So
Well,
ever since I carried on with my marriage, I feel as if my husband has now started taking advantage
I
of my
okay. So
forgiveness.
so sometimes we become people pleasers, right? We in order to gain the validation of 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 the other person, we become we please too much. And I think in this case, um, those boundaries need to be set. Those boundaries need to be set. That it needs to be said that I will not, allow you to take advantage of my forgiveness. And if you do it again, or my if I feel that I'm being taken advantage of, then A, B, and C will be done. Those steps, and the steps that she's asking for, those steps should be things like I can speak to other people about it. I can, and this is not to gossip, but many a times we'll find that um, spouses and men especially, if they know that my wife is going to expose me, um, then that might give them a wake up call. So I think in that case, um, you need to let him know that you can't take advantage of my forgiveness. Um, I am a human being. I am Allah's creation. I have a voice, and many a times we find that spouses' voices are just uh, uh, drowned out because they feel so small and so undignified and so weak after what they've been through. Um, and in that case, then you approach the relevant people. You approach either his parents, you approach the the Muslim organizations for some counseling, and there's counseling offered from many people. I mean, I'm not saying everybody needs a psychiatrist. Maybe some people do. I'm not saying everybody needs a psychologist. Maybe some people do. Marital counselors are there, ulama are there, mashayikh are there. You know, they are all there doing some sort of service. And again, I'm going to say, you know, it's not something that is uncommon. It's something that um, I being, you know, for 10 years now in practice, I see it, I hear about it, and it doesn't always go. I know most of the questions were from sisters here, but sometimes men are betrayed as well. So as a man, I just want to just that it's come to mind now. As a man, don't feel ashamed that this has happened to you. Don't feel that you can't speak about it because it will diminish my masculinity. Um, I think you should seek the help that's needed and speak about it if you need to. Many a times, what prevents men from coming to the rooms, for example, it, and this stretches maybe across mental health. Um, it's this feeling of my masculinity is being diminished. So I think men need to know that there's no shame in speaking about your problems as well. It's not a ladies thing or a feminine thing only, but men can be hurt, men can be betrayed, and they also have voices. They must also, you know, use those voices and go to the relevant people.
Doc, there's another question. How do I forgive myself after being raped? I blame my body's response and my lack of fight or flight mode. It's been 6 years now.
Allahul Musta'an. Allah Ta'ala grant you the greatest of rewards for your affliction. And I know that's not something that you want to hear often because it's not something nice to go through. But this is part of what we call, sometimes part of the post traumatic stress disorder that we see, and complex um, PTSD, where women or men, but I think maybe this is coming from a sister, um, uh, blame themselves for something that has happened to them. And this is something that um, we're still trying to find the explanation for. But a lot of it comes down to, why couldn't I protect myself? Or did I entice so and so? No, it's never that. Don't ever blame yourself. Don't ever think that you are in the wrong. You did not do anything in order to deserve what happened to you. You you are a victim in this case. So while not encouraging everyone to fall into the victim mode, in the same uh, in the same breath, you are a victim in this case, and you should, um, even if it means after 16 years, seek the reparations that you can. Get the help that you can. Um, if you want to, um, you know, if a person is a perpetrator, then expose them for what they are. Uh, don't ever blame yourself. Don't ever feel guilty. That's my main message. That, you know, I see people who feel guilty that they have been abused or molested or raped. Why? Why do we feel guilty? Don't feel guilty. Rather, take the strength and the power back into your hands. And this is not coming from any feminist angle or anything like that. It's just what's haq, it's haq. What's true is true. Um, you should in no way feel guilty about something bad that happened to you.
Assalamu alaikum, Doc. We have come to the end of the session. There is still quite a few questions. Would you like to continue?
If we have time, yeah, we can.
Yeah. So somebody's asking, I've been married for 20 years and all our married life, my husband has been cheating. Every time he gets caught, he apologizes and blames Shaitan, and we carry on. He lies all the time. I sent him to a psychiatrist and he was diagnosed with bipolar. Would this condition contribute to him cheating?
So bipolar disorder, for those that are not aware, is not something to be flippantly used. It's not an up and down. Um, today is irritable, tomorrow he's not. It's not that. Bipolar disorder is, there has to be one manic episode. So when you talk about a manic episode, um, the patient needs to have displayed either a few days of maybe decreased need for sleep, increased appetite, reckless behavior. And when we talk about reckless behavior, risky behavior falls under that. So either risky financial behavior, for example, swiping credit cards for amounts we can't afford, risky promiscuous sexual behavior. And if the psychiatrist has and there's many other things, so maybe racing thoughts, speaking out of turn, there's a lot of things that define a manic episode. And most bipolar patients actually suffer more depressive episodes than manic episodes. But if your husband was bipolar, was suffering from bipolar disorder for 20 years, and this has been diagnosed by a psychiatrist, then risky sexual behavior might be one of the symptoms that he has. Now, whether he is to blame for that or not, bipolar disorder is not something that I can ask for or blame everything on. Yes, if I'm not taking my medication as prescribed and not attending therapy sessions as prescribed or as advised, then yes, I am to blame. But if I am, if the patient is taking their medication, going to therapy sessions, and I advise that you go with your husband to the psychiatrist. It can't be a once-off diagnosis and 20 years of behavior. It has to be, a lifelong thing that you are joining him on his sessions, him discussing these things. Sometimes patients, while in a manic episode, do not remember, when they're not in a manic episode, what they did during that time. So but most of the time they do. So they need to own up to these things, and they need to, while we can't blame someone for having bipolar disorder, they need to also play the part in terms of attending therapy, taking their medication, getting the optimum medication, etc. And when it comes to these things, often I find that you get mental health practitioners, and then you get mental health practitioners who are blending deen and our values of religion with their therapy. So that's very important. It's important that someone gets, it must be a right fix, first of all. And it's important that they get the therapy that's uh, medically sound, but also we as Muslims must deal with it from an Islamic point of view, in the sense that we don't deny mental illness, we accept it, we accept that it's a form of test from Allah Ta'ala, but we also choose someone to treat us who understands the dynamics of the culture and the religion that we are coming from.
Assalamu alaikum. My parents have a very dysfunctional marriage. They share no relation other than living in the same house. They stay in separate rooms. They have seen a psychiatrist, and my dad feels that he has found his comfort zone in life, and my mom must do the same. His behavior leads us to believe he has someone else, but there is no concrete proof, and denies it. We are all married except my younger sister in matric. What would you advise?
I think in this case, it's about where your mother finds her therapy. What were the core problems? Why they're living separate lives? I mean, maybe that needs to be addressed. Maybe that hasn't been addressed. Maybe I'm not sure of the particulars of this case, but if a person does something on their own and then just comes and dictates the same to everyone else, that doesn't really make sense to me. I think in a family is a family. So they all should be involved in decision making, and the parents in particular should maybe be attending the same therapist. Maybe that will make a difference, rather than one person saying, I found happiness in something, and the other just being told you need to be happy about it. I don't know the particulars. There could be so much more than what's on the surface. There could be so much more than what's told to the children. Sometimes they don't really know the full details, and they're just being told something by one parent. And often we find cases where children are used as pawns in this game between mother and father. And that's not really fair on the children. Neither is it fair on the spouse that is just been told, I found my happiness in this and you go your own way. I think maybe if they attend the same sessions and work out what they've been going through, will be more beneficial than just one person doing their own thing.
Shukran, Doc. I think we'll end off at this point. Shukran for your time, and shukran for answering most of the questions. We do apologize if we've missed some of your questions, and we hope to host you soon in the near future, Doc. Shukran jazilan. Barakallah feek.
I do apologize for anything that I have said that was not understood correctly. If anybody wants to contact me directly, you can via my social media, and or you could get the details from Muslims Connected. And I think if anything was, you see, with these types of conversations, there's a lot of nitty gritty that's in the background of these questions, and so it's difficult for me to sort of make a blanket statement on something. So I apologize if I've offended anyone, but at the same time, please understand the situation that I'm in. I'm just answering the question given from one side. So if further details are required, then please contact me.
شكرا جزيلا.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.